Welcome to the Labour Force. I'm Bongeni Mutwa. COSATU has welcomed the extension of the COVID-19 TERS benefit scheme by the Department of Labour. The surprise decision follows an earlier stance by the department that the scheme would not be extended after it lapsed last month. Millions of workers who have been laid off during the current national lockdown have come to rely on the TERS scheme for income. As part of the TERS scheme, the UIF has paid out 34 billion rand to more than 7 million workers and 500,000 affected businesses. Another 500,000 workers who have applied are still awaiting payment. The UIF says only workers in sectors that are still under lockdown, like tourism and the hotel industry, qualify to apply. Well, for more on this now, I'm joined by COSATU's Matthew Parks. To discuss this further, I'm joined on the line by COSATU's Parliamentary Liaison Officer, Matthew Parks. Good afternoon, Matthew.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Just a few weeks ago, both the UIF and the Minister of Labour were adamant that the scheme would not be extended. What brought about the change of mind?
Yes, look, as COSATU, we strongly welcome the extension. For us, it's a huge victory for millions of workers and their families and the economy. We estimate it will inject an additional 15 billion rand for this extra month and a half worth of UIF payments. We had been having extensive engagements with the Minister and the UIF management team at NEDLAC over the past few months. We felt there was a need to extend the support the UIF has been giving to workers and their families and the economy. And of course, you would remember that the President extended the lockdown for an additional 6 weeks. So basically, what the UIF has done is simply to extend the UIF COVID-19 assistance by the same time period, an additional 6 weeks. And any worker from a place of work which is suffering financial distress, that worker is eligible. The employer should apply on behalf of that worker, and the UIF will assist with some income support to that company. And this is done to assist workers who have lost wages from companies which are financially under huge pressure, and also workers who are in danger of losing their jobs. And the intention also was to make sure workers, no matter what, have enough money to buy food and take care of their families during this difficult time, to help those companies remain open and to avoid retrenchments. So for us, we're quite pleased that the Minister of Labour, Tulis Ntasi, and the Commissioner of the UIF did a very good job, and they responded to COSATU's call. Your introduction clip was very useful. To date, the UIF has managed to pay over 34 billion rand in this UIF COVID-19 relief scheme. They managed to make more than 7 million payments out of a total of about 9 million applications. Some of the applications have technical glitches, and workers have been quite frustrated waiting for that. But we are working with the UIF and with employers to address those glitches. And some of those are about wrong bank account details, wrong ID numbers, and those kind of issues. We're hopeful it will happen, that they'll be addressed. It's also critical that employers who have not yet applied must apply urgently. We are getting flooded by calls from workers that they have not received any money. There are many employers who have not taken up this opportunity. They need to do so because this is money that will help them to remain afloat, help their workers to receive a salary, help to stimulate the economy. And so for us, it's very critical that everyone who needs help apply to the UIF to receive that help, because it won't remain open forever.
Now, Matthew, obviously now it looks like the UIF is left with only 6 billion rand out of the 40 billion that was initially set aside for the TERS scheme. Have you started with employers as well to think about what's going to happen when the 40 billion is exhausted, which looks like it's going to be fairly soon?
Yes. So look, before the lockdown, the UIF had about 143 billion rand available. So there is money available. There has been costing done. They had initially committed to providing 40 billion rand worth of relief, but we had, as COSATU, extensive engagement with the UIF leadership to avail more money. So they have done so. We expect that for the June period, and now including the July and August, we will definitely exceed that 40 billion rand and probably push into the mid-50 billion rand figure. But there is sufficient funds available. But also it's critical to remember that the UIF on its own can't shoulder the entire nation. It is workers' deferred wages. It is going to help workers. But other departments of government now need to also come to the party to help those badly affected sectors of the economy. For example, the hotels, the restaurants, the alcohol sector, manufacturing, and so forth. The UF on its own only assists workers with lost wages. It doesn't assist the companies itself beyond that. So those departments of government need to come to the party in a massive way. But equally, government on its own doesn't have sufficient resources to pick up the entire economy. The private sector, in the form of the banks and investment funds, need to come to the party to inject liquidity into the economy. They need to release the 200 billion rand surety that government has stood for through the banks in the form of loans to businesses. They need to make sure that it's dispersed quickly. That is a huge stimulus. And to date, less than 5% of it has been paid so far to businesses. So basically, everybody needs to throw every single thing they have in the economy to keep it afloat, to keep workers employed, to keep businesses open, so that we can rebuild this country.
Now, just to get your views, of course, yesterday we saw the restaurant industry out on the streets. One of the things that they were calling for is the lifting on the ban of alcohol. As COSATU, do you have a view on that?
Yes, look, it's a difficult issue. We agree with government, and the health science speaks to it, that our hospital emergency rooms were flooded when the alcohol ban was lifted. South Africa, we have a problem where people abuse alcohol. There are too many people who get drunk, they get into car accidents, people die. They go home and beat their wives or their partners, and so on. People end up getting stabbed and shebeens over the weekend. So government had no choice but to intervene because the hospitals are on the breaking point, and they need to prioritize people affected with COVID-19. So it's up to us as a nation to learn to consume alcohol responsibly. If we can't behave properly, then government is forced to intervene. But we do agree with industry that we need to look at a plan to prevent job losses. This has a huge impact upon farms, upon restaurants, the entertainment sector, the retail sector, etc. We are meeting with industry and government today, and I'd like to discuss it. The industry needs to come also to the table and say, what will they do to help reduce alcohol abuses?
Well, Matthew, I'm afraid we have to leave it there. We ran out of time, but thank you very much. It was a pleasure to hear from you. Up next, the Alternative Investor with Nastasia Arendse. Stay with us.